episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. Welcome to On Her Terms Defined. I'm Charlene Ketchum, and today I'm here with Christia DeShields. She's an educator, author, songwriter, musician, and creative. She's been an educator in the public school system for over 10 years. She and her husband, Kenneth, recently published Sensory Seeking Sebastian, a book that empowers sensory seekers with strategies that help with self-regulation. This book was inspired by their son, who has ADHD and proprioceptive sensory disorder. And I hope I said that word correctly this time. Christia and I actually went to high school and college together, and she has always been this light, just this really light person and just really vibrant. And before we started recording, we were talking for like 40 minutes almost about her journey, about her journey, because I'm so proud of Christia.
Yeah.
And in particular, your son, just for his bravery and sharing this story and inspiring all these other children, these other children who will be healed as a result of your story. So first, let's start with giving people like some foundation. So the word that I almost butchered at the beginning, let's start with some definitions. ADHD, proprioceptive disorder.
Yes. So ADHD is pretty familiar to a lot of people. It's like attention deficit and hyperactivity. So there's ADD and ADHD. The ADD is without the hyperactivity. The ADHD is like kind of with. And then proprioceptive sensory disorder was a new term for me too. But it's actually, and it took a while for me to grasp what it actually was, but it's like your sixth sense, they say. And it's like where you are, it's how your body knows where it is in space. So people with poor proprioceptive sensory, they're kind of clumsy, they run into things, they don't really know their strength, so they can go grab a door and it'll be like they're like just yanking it and they don't realize they're yanking it, but they are. And also for little people, when they try to like fill that sensory void, because they don't have language and they don't have ways to kind of regulate themselves, they kind of do it in a negative manner, which that can look like biting, jumping, pushing, scratching, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So it can come off and kind of look like a behavior problem, but they're really just trying to fill their sensory tank. And so that was something that like, because we were like, our kid, like he's such a sweet kid. His daycare provider was like, he's such a sweet kid, but he has these moments when he's like really aggressive. So it looks like aggressive behavior, but it's just because their body is like freaking out and they don't know how to kind of regulate themselves. Yeah. So those are the two terms. And before we keep going, Charlene actually edited my papers in college, and I just want to thank you for that. Thank you.
You forgot about that. Yeah. Oh my God. I totally forgot about that.
Yes. Thank you, girl.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That was like way back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And who knew
you a whole lot.
And then you would be publishing books, like literally.
I know. I'm like, I never thought that I didn't have that on my list as a children's book publisher. And it's just crazy the way God works. And like, you're part of that journey too. Like, I would come to you all the time. Please, can you edit? Can you look at this?
Yeah. I remember.
So thank you.
Do you remember when I worked at Famous Bar? Now this is really dating us. When I worked at Famous Bar, you came up there when we were in high school to study for a test. And I remember I'm pretty sure it was you that came. I was working up there and you came up there for something because we had exams, and I was at the one at Northwest Plaza. And,
oh my gosh.
And my manager, Brad, came by. He's like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Register.
Yes, girl, we have finals.
Bringing me some notes or something for finals. I think you were sharing your notes with me.
Oh, wow.
Up there. And yeah, it was really slow. It was a slow season. Right at the register.
Like school comes first.
Yeah, it's like, gotta make it work. Gotta make it work.
Yes, so, that's awesome.
I mean, This is just amazing. And you wear so many hats, like literally very
Yes,
well.
I love, yeah, our hat family.
Like you've been a fashion designer and still a fashion designer and just always had all this creativity and just one of the kindest hearts like
Thank you.
ever. And so I wasn't surprised when I saw this come across my news feed that you all were sharing your journey and just really helping to empower other people. And this was really, really caught my attention because as I was saying before we started recording, this is not something that we really talk about a lot in the Black community in particular, even though, autism and developmental and behavioral learning challenges impact our community just the same as everyone else's, but we don't really talk about it. And we don't really see ourselves and our babies reflected in the literature and resources out there. And so to have this book, and so now other brown and Black kids can see themselves and just see this empowerment. And who I know that your mom, she edited the book, correct?
My mother-in-law, so my husband's mom
Okay.
edited this one. Yeah.
So this was like truly a family collaboration.
And she's an educator as well. So funny. My mom's an educator, I'm an educator, and my husband's mom's an educator. So
I didn't realize that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And she's like, my mom's retired. I left because my kids needed me. And then Kenny, my husband's mom, she retired and then went back. So she's still teaching. She teaches a couple times a week, but she's a math teacher and she taught in college and high school, middle school, all those things. So it's kind of like a family.
Wow, that is so awesome. I did not know that.
Teaching actually was something that I ran away from because I saw my mom. People would be like, "You'll be a great teacher," and I'm like, "No." I saw my mom like, "Kids are bad," And then I ended up becoming a teacher. My mom always tells, she's like, I thought you would never be a teacher. I was like, it's in the bloodline, I guess,
Oh, I didn't know you were running from that. I mean,
I ran
balanced so well. Like you are always doing like all these amazingly creative things. And then you were teaching Spanish for a long time as well, when I was like, oh, that all fits, like all this like creativity and flair. And then just knowing the heart that you have, like it all went together to me. So I didn't know that was something that you were running from.
Wow. Yeah. I because if you guys are like into Enneagrams or anything, I'm a 7. I'm a 7. So I have like lots of interest and I kind of get
I'm a 7.
Yes. And I'm learning though that I don't have to just pick one, I can kind of like run with like the ones that I'm interested in and like do those because that's what's fulfilling for me, and the cool part about teaching was that in the summertime, I got to do all those creative things. I got to travel, I got to do other, so I think that really helps me, have my job, but also have my hobbies and other passions and pursuits as well. So, yeah.
Wow. And it's, and we were talking about this before we started recording too, but just the magic of how God works,
yes.
Because everything that you've done prepared you to be empowered in these circumstances.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, it is. It's crazy. So I was telling, I ran away from teaching, but I ended up teaching and I taught students with learning differences. I taught students with autism. I taught all kind of students. And, I knew how to differentiate it. I knew how to kind of meet them where they were, but I didn't understand it as a parent, until my own kid needed me. So like in 2018, I actually left the classroom because it was just so many challenges. My son, he was in preschool having lots of challenges. He had a great teacher. She left. And then there was like no consistency for him. And so he was just getting in trouble all the time. We were getting calls all the time. And so while we're still trying to figure this out, meanwhile, we put him in occupational therapy, which really, really helped us kind of figure out like, okay, what do we need to do as parents? I'm proactive. I'm very proactive. That's one thing I would also say to parents who have kids that have some challenges: be proactive and advocate for your child because you're their best advocate. And so we took him out of one, and these are all like private schools. So we took him out of one, and I kind of like homeschooled him the rest of that year. And then we put him, he's super young, and I didn't want him in kindergarten, but they only had a spot for him in kindergarten because he actually just made the cutoff for kindergarten for last year, but he got put in because that was the space that was left. And it was just like not a good fit for his personality, very like, you know, you had to stay in your seat, couldn't breathe hardly, you know, like it was one of those very strict kind of old school private school. So it just wasn't a good fit for him. And so then we thought we finally found a good fit. So mind you, this is 3 schools in 1 year.
1 year.
So we thought we found a good fit for him. And, you know, they were like, yeah, we have kids here with learning disabilities. We have kids with ADHD, with behavioral things. We do all these things. And we're like, okay. So we put him in, we think we got it. No, they were not equipped to handle students who didn't fit that norm. So private, I don't know, you may have your own experiences, but I feel like private schools are great if your student fits in a particular box. But anything outside of that box, because we're paying for outside occupational therapy and other things, you know, there's no resources really at a private school, which is sad to say, but there aren't. So he ended up actually getting put out of that school right before COVID hit. It was maybe a couple of weeks before COVID hit, and then everybody got sent home. So I was like, it was just such a horrible school year for him. But throughout that year, it was a hard year, but it actually birthed this book. And so I just liken it as a download from heaven, I say all the time, because it just kind of like came to me. And we're just like writing it out. And it's things that we had learned to do with him, because things with sensory issues, it's not like a one size fits all. It's like trial and error. So this might work. So this activity or this thing might work for one sensory seeker, but it may not work for the other, you know? So it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of trying to get him to have language to let us know what was helping him. So we would do something and like, did that help you? Did that calm you down? Yes or no? So like getting him to be more aware of his body. And so as a teacher, I saw a trend with my students. I taught for 10 years, I said 10 plus years. And I saw a trend with my students where they didn't really have a lot of grit, or they didn't know how to persevere or push through, or a lot of them, you know, wanted to be spoon-fed everything. So I was like, you know, our kids need to be empowered. Our kids need to be able to advocate for themselves, because when a parent isn't there, the kid needs to be their own advocate. And so at 3 and 4, Shiloh didn't have the language, but today, taking him to school, he's like, I think I need my weighted vest for today. Like, I think I need something for my hands. I'm like, okay, Shiloh, what do you need? I think I need something squishy, or I need something fuzzy, like just to fiddle with. Like a lot of times they need fidgets and things like that. But he didn't have the language. But I think because we were like adamant in like him being able to regulate himself and find ways to regulate himself, now he's able to articulate what he needs. And so we didn't have resources. We didn't know what to do. And so I think that's why this book kind of came to me, because I was like, you know, what would I have wanted, you know? And a lot of times it's kind of hard to tell your story, like telling somebody your kid got kicked out of 3 schools. That's embarrassing, you know, it can be. But now we laugh about it. I remember I was having like the hardest time, and I'm like, Lord, what is going on? And he gave me a scripture, because like with sensory and then ADHD, and a lot of times they don't tell you, like ADHD has comorbidities sometimes. So he had like extreme anxiety. It was so bad. And I was just like, God, like, oh my, like, does the Bible even work? Like, what? I'm like, what is going on? And I grew up, you know, I know it did. I have experience with the Lord, but I was just like, what is going on? And I remember waking up like in the middle of the night, hearing a scripture, like, God hasn't, 2 Timothy 1:7, that's when we say all the time, it's like, God hasn't given me a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. And it's like, when you're in fear, you're in anxiety, you don't think logically, you don't think rationally. So it's like so we started praying that God is giving you love, power, a sound mind. And so we rap it all the time. We actually have another book coming out later this year with like declarations for kids.
Oh my
where yes, yes.
goodness.
So they can get up and say, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm a masterpiece.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a
Yeah.
child, like I'm seen, I'm known, I'm loved from above. I like God knows me, he
Yeah.
sees me. He hasn't given me a spirit of fear. He's given me power and love. I can do all things, you know,
Yeah.
through Christ who strengthens me. And so like we started doing those and like just his confidence started soaring and we started seeing. So it's cool. It's not cool that we have to go through this, but it is cool that now we have some history with the Lord and he has history with the Lord and praying and seeing his prayers come to pass. And also like we talk about, you remember how this was hard? Remember how you were scared of this? Remember how you, now look, like, he's like, yeah, now I'm not scared of that anymore, you know, or like now I can do that, you know? And so just building that grit, building that perseverance in kids, I think is so important because we live in a world that is insane and we have to have some grit. We have to be able to persevere through hard times. And so that really inspired this book because I want other kids to be able to take control of their own regulation and to be able to advocate for themselves. And so that's why it's written in a way where it's like, you know, he's telling his story, but at the end it's like, now what can you do? Like, what are some things you think about, some ways that your body can calm down? You think about ways that you can get calm in a new space. And so, yeah.
That's so amazing. Like, oh my goodness. It's just, I mean, I love that you and Kenny have given him his, does he call himself Kenny? I just gave your husband.
Yeah, Kenny. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I thought you called him Kenny.
Kenny.
I was like, let me make sure if I give her husband a whole new nickname. I love that you all gave him his power, reminded him of his power, because it's just, you know, we were talking about this before, when you have something going on and you don't have the words to tell people, this is what I'm feeling, you feel so powerless. And that adds to the anxiety that contributes to it. And to be able to give him his, remind him that you have this power, you know, that you can tell us this, these are some tools that you've got in your box. And if that one's not, if this one isn't working today, then you can try another one. It's okay to try another thing. It's okay to tell us this is not okay. And I think so often as adults, we get into this habit of just dictating things to these kids and these young people. And I think that's what contributes to the lack of grit. And I love that you mentioned that because it's true. You know, we call it resilience or whatever word people want to use, but it is in smaller supply because we're not reminding people of their power. Like, you have this power to figure out what it is that you need and tell me how I can support you. And that's humbling and powerful for you and Kenny as parents to be able to say, you know what, we're here to listen. Tell us what you need. And mom and daddy's gonna go get what our baby needs. Because you made it.
Yeah, I think like for our parents, you know, a lot of family members are like, oh, he'll grow out of it. I don't know. I just, something in me is kind of just like very proactive. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but we got to figure out what it is so we can, you know, and our community, we're starting to realize that we need to talk about things, you know, a lot of things. And me and my mom joke about this now, but I'm like, Mom, you didn't talk about anything. And she was like, well, my parents didn't talk about, you know, so it was kind of like that generational thing. I was like, I don't know about anything because you didn't tell me nothing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, at first I was mad about it, but now we joke about it because I understand like that's what they knew. And so it was kind of like, you know, you don't talk about these things or they'll grow out of this. Or I know the labels, we don't like those labels either, but labels actually give us like, it's almost empowering because, okay, now I know what it is. Now I can go, I research and like, you know, pray about it. Now I can pray about it in a more specific way. I remember the ADHD diagnosis. I'm like looking up everything, like researching, like, how does this affect the brain? Like, what are the things that happen? It's helped me to understand my son instead of like being like super frustrated about him forgetting something I just told him, knowing that with ADHDers, like their short-term memory is affected, you know, now we kind of laugh about it instead of getting frustrated about it, you know? So I think that people do overuse labels, but I also think if you can name it, then you can figure out a way to get through it, you know?
Absolutely. And we need to start viewing these things. I mean, we wouldn't tell someone like, if you have cancer,
Yeah.
like don't give me the cancer label. I mean, you need to know how to you need to know what it is to manage it.
Yeah.
That restores your power. You know, knowledge is, it really is power when it comes to all of these things. And then for parents, I mean, what initial signs did you see that kind of prompted you to go in and get him screened?
Yeah, so that was the part that I really struggled with because I didn't see it. So number one, he's our firstborn. So like we don't know what's not normal.
Right.
You know, his pediatrician says he's fine, you know. So we didn't know until his daycare provider. And I remember talking to my friend, the one, so we initially wrote this book just for Shiloh. And then I told you before that one of my friends who has 2 children with autism, I let her read it because I was like, oh, this is probably just for Shiloh, you know, just so he can see himself and he can like, you know, read through it and stuff. And I saw like tears just flowing from her eyes. Like, she's like, this is the most perfect book. And, you know, she's African American, her kids are brown too. And we don't see, you know, brown kids in stories like this. And so crying. And I was like, oh, okay, this is for other people, you know? And so like initially I didn't see anything, like, cause his pediatrician said he was fine, you know, all these other things. We would say things like, I don't know, he'll off the rails sometimes, or like, you know, he's still biting or whatever, but you'll grow out of it kind of thing. And so I didn't see anything. And so that was something that I wrestled with for a little bit because I didn't see it. And then, but when I started seeing it, then I was like on top of it, you know. I didn't mention another thing. Another thing is that he also sees a chiropractor. So we believe in a lot of like, so he has taken some medication now, but he also sees a chiropractor, which was probably the turning point in a lot of his like impulsivity, because that comes along with ADHD, just like doing stuff to kids or grabbing them or whatever. But there's so many things that you can learn about your body that you could do naturally. So our chiropractor is a couple who started a family chiropractic center. And so I remember a friend telling us that she used to work in a chiropractic office, and there's these kids who come in there with ADHD, and then like their ADHD would be gone. I'm like, yeah, right. So at one of our lowest moments, I remember my husband had a dream about our friends that started a chiropractic center and was like, he's like, maybe we should call them. I was like, yeah, let's call them. So we called them and took them in. I go in there, he'll tell you the story. It's so funny. I go in there, I'm like, fix them. I don't know what's wrong, you know? So we learned so much that like a lot of it has to do with our spinal alignment. So our spine sends messages to our brain. And if we have blockages in our spine, those mixed messages go to our brain. And so he explained it kind of like Shiloh's body is in fight or flight mode. So that's why he's super impulsive, because he's in fight or flight mode. So because he has blockages in his spine. So if we realign those or align them up the way they're supposed to be, it relaxes those muscles or that impulsivity. And we started taking him to chiropractor. Immediate change. Like after the first one, he was calmer, everything. We actually like halved his medicine too. And so he was going twice a week, and now he goes once a week. And it has changed. Yeah. And so now, like, even I talk to parents who like reach out to me about their kids and stuff. And I'm like, chiropractic therapy has helped us so much. So much. Yeah. Not so much so that now we all go once a week now with him, and his brothers go too. But it has helped so much, the change. He's been going for a year now, actually a year this month maybe. And it has changed so much because he's in alignment now. And now like he goes fewer times because his alignments are staying put, you know? And so all of it has to do like with our spine and the messages that it sends. Like chiropractic therapy helps with overall health as well. That has been like a huge blessing for us. But I know a lot of times like we talked earlier about like resources and stuff like that. I know, and the same was like, it was hard because we live in the city. So we didn't really know what to, and he wasn't in kindergarten yet. So it's like, there's nothing you can do. It's kind of like that wait and see, but we were paying for outside, like occupational therapy. We did discover that UMSL does screening screenings for kids. So that's a resource. You have a child that's not kindergarten age, not in public school, and you want to get them tested, you can go to UMSL. They do testing. But yeah.
Wow. So were the schools like, how did you just go online to find all
Yeah.
resources, or
We would ask around. We asked everybody we knew, and it was a collaborative.
did the pediatrician have any guidance initially?
He didn't see anything that was serious enough to send him to a developmental pediatrician. Okay. And so like the last school that we were at, they were like, because with the anxiety, he wasn't talking at school. So like, not only is he not talking, but he has these behavioral issues. So they're thinking like, you guys, there's something going on. And we're like, well, he sees a pediatrician, he sees an occupational therapist, and now he sees a chiropractor, and like, he's fine in those places. But it was in school that he was like super like shut down. And even now, so this year has been amazing. He's in a public school. He has so many resources, so much support. He did go in at the beginning of school, they were all virtual. By January, they were 4 days a week, but he's still kind of timid and quiet, but he is gaining his confidence in school and he loves school now. So it's been a redemptive story and a redemptive year for us, because last year was so bad, but this year has been so amazing. So yeah, our pediatrician didn't see, and he still now is like, our pediatrician, his son has ADHD as well. And so there's just variations of that too. So not every ADHDer is the same. And so I think he was really thinking like, when you get into the school system, then you'll be able to get, more support. But we were just kind of like, we don't really know what's going on. So it was kind of like you said earlier, when you don't know what's going on, it's a scary kind of place. And so we just wanted to make sure that we could support him as much as we could.
It's been such a journey. So in terms of like key tips for parents, like really, it sounds like early intervention is really important.
I think so.
I know a lot of people, and I know people personally who've had daycare providers, and it seems that it's a lot of times it's probably going to be their child care provider, because they're with the child the most. For parents who are working outside the home. And so a lot of times people get those insights, or they'll say, I think you might want to get your child screened, and parents immediately say, oh no, because I don't see this at home, or they're scared. And so they shut it down immediately, which is normal, to be, because if you don't know about something, you're fearful. So it sounds like one of the first things a lot of parents need to work towards doing is just pursue the screening.
Mm-hmm.
Just get that other opinion, and then just pay closer attention to your child, do that independent research, because the other thing that I'm learning is that a lot of things don't look the way we think they look. And like you just noted, it looks different in everyone. Mm-hmm. There are different spectrums. There's a broad spectrum of autism. And so people think that everyone who has autism is just one way. And that's not the case, even when it comes to anxiety. So get that screening, be receptive to that.
I was one of those parents that like I said, I was like, you were lying. He's talking at home. Like, I was scared. I was afraid. But what? At the end of the day, you want what's best for your child. And you want to be able to advocate for your child as best as you can. You want to get the best resources and things that your child can have. So yes, it's scary. It's definitely scary, but I would say push past that, because at the end of the day, you want what's best for your child. And people we all have different learning styles, So at the school he's at now, it's like, okay, we just got to figure out what's his best learning style. And as an educator, I'm really excited about that education, people in education are looking at it that way, that not everyone, learns the same. People need different resources. It needs to be differentiated for different types of learners. And so it's okay. We all learn differently, and I've seen some of my friends who have children with either autism or some other differences, and they are like thriving now because they've had speech therapy, because they've had occupational and behavioral therapy. They're thriving. My son actually is in speech therapy right now at school, and he goes once or twice a week, and he loves it. They play games, they read a story, and his expressive and receptive language has just soared. So
Wow.
it's scary. It's scary, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's what you want the best. You want to give the best tools to your child. Yeah.
So one question I always ask, because I try to think about what might the audience need to know before we wrap up. So you've mentioned a lot of amazing resources that you found to help support Shiloh, but a lot of people are probably thinking about who pays for all of that.
Yeah.
And what might be something that the public school system offers as opposed to what is typically covered by insurance. So when you talk about chiropractic support and occupational therapy, speech therapy, are any of those things offered by the schools, or are some things covered by insurance typically? What has been your experience?
Yeah, that has been the challenge too, especially if your child isn't school age yet, so before kindergarten. So occupational therapy, we were paying out of pocket. We did with our insurance, they did give us a discount for like 30 sessions. And at one point we had to stop going because I mean, it was an expense that we couldn't do at the time. And we actually opted for, instead of occupational therapy, we're like, okay, let's do chiropractic, because we were seeing lots of strides there. And then once he's in school, we were like, okay, now he can get occupational therapy in school. Well, get into public school, it's not like they just give it to you anymore. So like now they're tracking him and just kind of like monitoring where he is and like really paying close attention to some of the things that he needs. And so one of those things was speech. So he was able to get like speech right away. He's not in occupational therapy right now because you need something that's called an IEP, individual education plan for that. So the district now, they don't just give you an IEP. They try to use whatever resources that they have already to see if they try to exhaust all of their resources first before they write an IEP, which I think is a good way to go. But you can insist on your child being tested. You can insist on your child being tested if you're in a school district. That's your right as a parent to insist on your child being tested. We've chosen to kind of let them kind of like, because he seems to be doing really well with like speech, and he's making strides in like his handwriting, because that's what he would need occupational therapy for. But I'm pretty sure he probably will be getting, after they do kind of like all their assessments by the end of this year, maybe he'll have an IEP and be able to get occupational therapy. I would love for him to get it, because I do think he needs it, especially with the proprioceptive sensory things that he has. But he's making lots of strides. So I would say, so occupational and speech is something that you can get in a school district. The chiropractic therapy, maybe a lot of insurances don't cover chiropractic therapy, no matter what. But there are some chiropractors that will work with you. I can give you the information to ours, and he's amazing, and he works with families. Yeah, but those other two, you could definitely get in a school district.
Okay, perfect.
Also, UMSL is another good resource for testing if your child isn't in school yet.
Okay.
And a lot of times they do free testing.
Occupational therapy, what does that include? Just for people who are listening and don't quite know what occupational therapy consists of, what's the focus there?
So it could be a lot of different focuses. It can be fine motor skills. A lot of it is fine motor skills. So what motor skill do you want to work on? So for Shiloh, it would specifically be his handwriting. But when he was going, before he went to school, it would be like his balance. So they would do a lot of activities with like balance. It's really fun. Like I wanted to go in there because they play lots of games. They do like hand-eye coordination, balance, just all those kind of skills that your body needs to kind of work properly. Just depend on the specific skill that you're needing, but it's mostly all fine motor skills.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
So awesome. Is there anything else? First, people can purchase Sensory Seeking Sebastian on Amazon. Is there any other place? they can go
On
to?
Amazon, just right now on Amazon.
Okay. And you've got another book that'll be coming out later this year, and I will be following up with you because I made a note on here
Oh,
so that we
awesome.
can let
Thank
people know
you.
about that. Is there any other information that you want to share that I didn't ask you about?
Well, I would just want to encourage parents. I was talking to a parent the other day, like that this season, the 2 to 5 is just really hard, especially if you have a child with some issues, some needs. 2 to 5.5, probably the hardest years. And so I just want to encourage you that this is a season. You will get through this. I would just encourage you to find community and find other families that have either gotten through it or you guys can run together and get through it together. But you can do this, and your child will thank you for it. Hang in there. It's hard, but it's so worth it to come out on the other side. It is so worth it. And so I just want to encourage you all. You guys are amazing parents. Like, God has given you everything that you need to steward and parent your child the way that they need to be parent. You have a puzzle. We call them puzzles. Like, you have a very special puzzle that you just kind of have to figure out where the pieces go. But like, with God's help, you can figure it out. So I just want to encourage you.
Thank you. You have always been just a beautiful person. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your family.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, y'all are blessing people with this story and then with this book. I mean, seriously. So thank you.
Thank you so much for spreading it. I really appreciate it. Really, really do.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you. So I will have all of these resources and more that Christia described on the she.confidential.com website. And thank you all for joining and watching On Her Terms. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and then until next time.
Bye.
Yay! Thank you.